right, chat. First up is the big the big news of the day. Overwatch 2 retail patch notes, December 12th, 2023. New patch notes are out. It's pretty small, but it's for Mauga. Chain gun damage reduced from 5 to 4, a 20% straight up damage nerf. That's huge. It needed it 100%. A lot of people ask like, oh, Flats is amazing. No, he's absolutely needed a nerf. Do I think he's going to dominate high level play? Probably not. He's going to be like another Roadhog probably in a lot of ways. So the reason why you saw those super high, like 25,000 damage Mauga and then everyone else had like 3,000 damage games is just because Maugas were shooting each other. But once you introduce like Ryan, Ram, Winston, if it depends on the map, not head to head, but Sigma, Junker Queen, some ways, like anything that like it was harder to hit or had a shield or some way, he just couldn't heal nearly as much, and so he didn't do as much damage. He's gonna hurt, but this was absolutely needed. The number of shots with the incendiary chain gun to ignite enemies increased from 10 to 15. I don't know how I feel about that. I kind of wish there was a way, if I could make some kind of perfected version, I would make it so that it would require less shots at range and more shots up close. I think the most fun aspect of Mauga is the left click, then right click, left click, then right click. My brain just rattles out of my noggin when I just sit there and go, oh, and just like fucking hold both fucking buttons down, just, and like my fucking brain's rattling around in my noggin the whole time. So, but the left click, right click thing was cool. It was a cool like gameplay loop. But now that it's up to 15 seconds, I feel like you just shoot the tank all the time. Like if you try to shoot like squishies, it's gonna be a lot harder. And this nerf doesn't mean shit. Ultimate duration reduced from 10 to 8 seconds. I would have actually rather liked to see, instead of nerfing the duration, when he dies, that the ult goes down. Not only did we have the Mauga nerfs, but we also had a Reddit AMA that was done on Reddit by the Overwatch team about Mauga. I have not looked at any of it, and I don't scroll through Reddit, and I don't really use it that often, so I just have fuck tons of screenshots of everything they said. So, first up, we got this first one. Dear Structure. Hello, and thank you for organizing this AMA. I've appreciated the communication on Overwatch 2, and it's been positive. I have a specific query about Wrecking Ball. During Flats' stream with Alec, me mentioned Pog, there was a mention of ongoing changes for him. The past 2 reworks have truly improved gameplay, and as a Wrecking Ball main, I am eagerly anticipating potential alterations. Could you provide further details on the timeline for these changes, and perhaps delve into the specific plans for modifying his abilities? We've playtested around a first round of Wrecking Ball changes last week, and that's off to a good start. This is Alec, by the way. Alec Dawson, the head of basically Hero Bounce. We are looking at making it a bit easier to play alongside Wrecking Ball with various support heroes, increase Ball's options in combat, and implement some quality of life changes. In terms of timeline, it depends on how far we go with some of the changes and what's required there. It could end up being a bigger balance patch. It could end up as a bigger balance patch, or it could end up with giving Wrecking Ball a new ability. Right now, though, I think it'll lean closer to the first and not need the same support as that as Roadhog and Sombra needed. Hopefully get something out there in the next few seasons. This is kind of like this is just expanding on basically what he said before. A bit of a nothing burger. Because like they already said that they're looking at Wrecking Ball, but next few seasons could be like season 11 at the earliest, maybe. If I was to guess, I'd say season 13, because remember, it's every other season for hero season, so next season, absolutely not. Season 10 is the new hero. Season 11 would be the first off-hero season, so that's number 1. Season 12 is another hero season, so no. And then season 13. Season 13 is like next December or some shit. Like, well, actually, maybe, is it next December? It's like next September or something. It's out there. It's far, you know what I mean? So, bit of a nothing burger there, but, you know, still cool. All right, next. What are the plans to curb back Mauga's ability to punish enemy tanks? It's one of the less interesting portions of his kit, but it's one of the biggest things that make him strong right now.
With a friend, and my friend had only 380 chats last year. I think I insulted Kaki more times than he chatted total care.
True, he's the bits. And then they respond. Oh no, that's not them. This is someone else responding, and their name is Send Me Thigh Pics. Yeah, this is why we don't go on Reddit, kids. Hopefully reduces damage, but reduces damage but reduces spread. Direct nerf to big target damage and increased damage potential on squishies. Hopefully they don't let Mauga demolish Rhine. Mauga is intended to be an aggressive, high damage output tank as he offers less in defense to his team compared to other tank options and doesn't have great mobility. We're lowering Mauga's weapon damage in general, which will help with some of this as it can feel extreme at times. He has good and bad matchups within the tank role, which is great at creating some depth, so it's not necessarily a role-wide problem. Sigma Diva match up well and have an advantage against him. Roadhog, Junker Queen, and Ramatri are fairly even matchups. That's interesting. I don't know if I think Roadhog is a fair matchup. I think Roadhog is kind of Mauga food, unless you have Whole Hog. But interesting, they said that Diva and Sigma. I said Sigma for sure, but Zarya Ryan can do decently, but require more support from their team. And Mauga is strongest against the dive tanks and Orisa. That's really interesting that said Orisa, because I feel like in theory, Mauga should be rolled by Orisa. Just the same way as like Roadhog got rolled by Orisa. But I haven't really played Orisa versus Roadhog since the rework, so maybe that's not the same anymore. But basically, just as long as you have your Fortify, you should just get into his nose and just like, you know, you can crit her through Fortify. Well, there goes that theory, I guess. I thought Fortify nullified all crits no matter what, but I guess it just stops headshot crits. Oh. With Mauga's release, there were a few other balance changes like Queen's tighter spread and Ramatra's armor. Were these changes made with Mauga tank busting in mind, example leaving Roadhog and Reinhardt unchanged to see matchup data, or independently planned changes prior to his release? Response: we wanted to lift up some of the other tanks that we knew would have a particularly hard time with Mauga, but the changes themselves weren't necessarily tied to the direct matchup with Mauga. The change to Doomfist's ultimate, for example, was something we believed that helped players engage with it more regularly. In the change to Winston's primary fire helps him with a number of matchups. I gotta go find the Get Quaked On tweet. I gotta go get the Get Quaked On tweet. Quake fucking tweeted out basically their quote on how to use Doomfist ult and used it in a fight with like 1 HP, ulted, waited till he got full HP in the air, landed and got instantly exploded. Like instantly just died. Like it was so fucking funny. For Roadhog, we saw internally that had quite a hard time. Roadhog, we saw that internally had quite a hard time with Mauga. So even though he had been performing quite well across our rank thresholds, we decided to hold off on any changes. How Roadhog slots into the meta will be made more clear with upcoming Mauga changes and Mauga's inclusion into competitive. Isn't this kind of contradictory to what they said before, where Roadhog is good against Mauga, and then they said that he was struggling against him, but the numbers didn't look like he struggled? Because I'm on this is the side of the fence I'm on. I think Roadhog is food for Mauga, except when Roadhog is ult. But yeah. Anyways, all right, next. I really enjoy Mauga's dual guns gameplay. Setting people on fire with one gun and getting crit with the other is very fun. Unfortunately, it feels like the best way to play Mauga is to just shoot both guns at the same time, making his interesting gameplay mechanic an afterthought. Are there any plans to incentivize Mauga alternating gun gameplay? So this is kind of like why I didn't like the nerf that much. Not that I'm saying he didn't need it, it absolutely did, but it kind of seems like they took that away at far range in some ways. I really think they should go back on the bullet spread accuracy. Bullet spread accuracy should severely suffer when firing, both to really emphasize single gunning and only use double when it's very close range. Good question. Response: we'll have to see how this develops over time, as there's always a learning curve for new heroes. Shooting both guns is not always more effective due to the large spread and the more random nature of it. Learning when to use each firing mode to your advantage is part of the fun. Generally, if enemies are further than 15 meters or so, you'll want to do alternating primary secondary fire. Yeah, he's right. I'm not gonna lie. I don't actually know why this has so many upvotes. He's 100% right. Like, yes, if you're sitting in front of the other tank, you absolutely just sit there and blast both of them. Sometimes I couldn't get rid of the people replying that weren't Blizzard people. You can just ignore them. Yeah. No, I mean, like, it's I know I can ignore them, but like it's fun to see the other people's perspective a little bit. But basically to final it out, yeah, No's right. You don't actually hold both guns 90% of the time. What you end up doing is, like, at any type of range, you alternate. But if you're standing in front of their tank, yeah, you just blast both guns for sure. So it's kind of interesting that the way they say is like, you always use both guns, and it's like, well, that's probably like more towards the metal ranks where both tanks just sit 2 inches from each other. Just go, you know. Have you considered retouching on some of the visual effects in the game? Good question. There was recently a post showing an Orisa who was burned, nanoed, and at least one other thing, and it was extremely hard to tell the difference at times. Yes. In addition to Mauga's bullets tend to splash on the victim's screen, in addition to the burning, it makes it difficult to see at times. As we inevitably add more heroes to the game with their own set of abilities and visual kits, we'll continue to look at past VFX and new VFX to make sure that they all play nicely together. We always strive for clarity, but the Orisa post is a great example of how it can be difficult to read some of those stacking effects. The team is currently talking about solutions for that, and here's the feedback on the readability of some of Mauga's abilities. So this is super true. I've noticed this a lot, and like, especially if you're playing Mauga v Mauga and you get nanoed and you get you're just like, ah, like, you just sitting there like holding both guns, like everything's on fire, everything's flaming. I just lights and flashing, sim walls go up, someone TP'd, there's turrets, like, ah, like there's so much shit happening that, like, if you weren't an Overwatch gamer, you'd be like so confused. Even as an Overwatch gamer, you still get confused, right? So yeah, I actually don't know how they're going to deal with this. And we watched a video yesterday that talked about like how they would rework anti ability, and they wanted to make it so like you'd have to heal through a certain amount, like 200 healing to break the anti. So that way, like, if someone got anti, you could just pump them with healing and then it would break the anti effect. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that would work, because like intuitively that would be really hard to convey, right? Like, it just, like, I don't even know how you would put that in like a UI, you know? So anyways, move on. Next. Could you tell us some of the scrapped or early abilities you had from Mauga? Just like how you showed us Ilari's abilities that were scrapped, I'd love to see what ideas you had early on for Mauga. Game design does go through a lot of iteration to find more engaging combination of mechanics within the scope of our goals. We naturally try a lot of prototype variations, even with a strong starting idea. We tried a few alternate abilities for Overrun. One of the first ideas was a short-range dash that would toss enemies into the air behind him if you impacted them. It was fun to use, but the transition from third person to first person and trying to turn around and shoot them wasn't easy. And solutions like automatically doing a 180 with your camera took away control from players. Yeah, I see what they mean by that. The weapons had a couple alternate fires, or a couple alternates, such as a flamethrower or incendiary grenade launchers. Holy shit. There were a few attempts at having two very different firing weapons in each hand, one being hit scan like it is now, and the other being a travel time projectile. It didn't play as well when we were trying to fire both at the same time, unfortunately, especially in versions where there had been different firing rates, and how you want to aim travel time of projectiles by leading a target and tracking the ammo pool separately is difficult. The cage fight ultimate was pretty successful from the start, but we tried other versions to see what we could play best. It was a physical wall instead of a barrier at one point. There was also a completely different ult. Hey, there was a wall? That sounds sick. The completely different ult that was more of an area of effect debuff to the enemy damage dealt. The opposite of damage boost. Okay, that's actually kind of cool too. Dude, I kind of like the idea of an actual wall. You know, like an actual fucking wall. You know? Enfeebling orb? Oh, God. Yeah, I mean... Kinda, yeah, you're not wrong. I don't know, though. A real cage fight. Like, an actual wall that goes up. Like, all I think is, like... You know how, like, there's, like, the music of, like... But, like, actual walls go up? I don't know. To me, that sounds even more sick. I think that would have been the way to go. I'm just saying. You know, people can run through it and, like, run in and join in on the fight. But, like, that way, it truly is a boss fight. You know, maybe make the wall lower so that, like, Bap could jump over it or something, or, like, Winston could jump in if he really wanted to, like, jump in from the fucking crowd, you know? But that's kind of cool. I like that idea. Anyways, next. What are the team's thoughts on Mauga's cardiac overdrive currently? It often feels like he is too tanky when the ability is active, but too fragile when it's inactive / countered. Along with the visual effects, it can be hard to discern at times. Yeah, that's fair. We are reducing his damage. And those changes went live in this morning's hotfix patch. This change will inadvertently affect how much lifesteal he receives during cardiac overdrive, making him a little less tanky. Yep, that's true. So basically, the way the cardiac overdrive worked is lifesteal. So by him doing a whole point less of damage per shot, it should theoretically give him a 20% healing nerf. So it's a 20% damage nerf from 5 to 4 damage. And then, because of the way the lifesteal works, is a percentage of that damage. It should be a pretty sizable nerf. But also, I don't really feel that great about the whole idea of, like, the only way you can play Mauga is shoot the other tank. Right? Like, if you're not sitting there and shooting the other tank, you basically just suck. You know? And then they nerfed the part with the flames that, like, really was intuitive, you know, and now it, like, almost you're encouraged now, I would say, to shoot the tank even more, to stay alive more, right? I don't know if this will be seen, but I know it was mentioned that there are a certain number of heroes that the team is looking at for reworks or kit tune-ups. You mentioned Wrecking Ball as being on top of the list. Is Reaper being looked at for a rework at all? I love his current kit, but he does seem prime for a rework since he has an available ability slot. And then on the unrelated note, any plans for a Talon heavy themed Mauga skin? I would love to have that one. Thanks for taking the time to do the Q&A. Reaper is also on that list. Really?
Tongue.
He had our first brainstorm and have aligned on our overall goals for what we would want to see with Reaper's abilities. One of those goals is modernizing Reaper's kit, Shadow Step, and Wraith form standing out there. We may also explore some new abilities for Reaper on the right click. We don't want to take the space just because it's available. If we add something there, we want to give him something slightly more decision making in combat than he has currently. Enfeeble orbs coming back. With the soul orbs? Oh god. Oh man. That's interesting though. Yeah, Reaper does kind of seem like he's either going to be OP or shit at all times. But yeah, like it's kind of like a metal rank pub stomper, and then high rank, like you don't really play him. You know, they're like, I can't tell you how often when people say like, oh, they have a Winston, go Reaper. And it's like, yeah, I mean, sure. Does Reaper tear through Winston? Yeah. Does the way you play Winston in high rank kind of like turn that off in a lot of ways? Yeah, at the same time. But we saw in World Cup, there were teams that literally just went Winston swap counters. Like they just went like full Winston counters and they'd win games. So like, you can't really shit on it either, but at the same time, I don't know. It's weird. Mauga's ult is pretty interesting in that almost nothing can escape from it. As far as I know, the only ways out are Sim TP and Lifeweaver pull. Also EMP if you count that as escaping. How does the team determine which abilities can counter which ults? Is it more about consistency between ults? The power levels of each ability, the heroes that are likely to be played in each matchup, technical limitations of the game, or they're a little less premeditated and a little more played by ear. This is usually trying to be consistent with game mechanics. We do make exceptions when necessary for the sake of game balance, but the less often we need to do that, the easier it is for players to learn and understand many of these interactions across multiple heroes. A good answer. Mauga's ultimate tethers are applying what we call mobility lock which disables movement skills. Other things that use this mobility lock are Junkrat's Steel Trap, Cassie's Magnetic Grenade Hinder effect. Oh, gotta love a good hinder. Zarya and Sigma's ultimates. For gameplay consistency, you should be able to use Symmetra's Teleporter and Lifeweaver's Life Grip against his abilities. Okay. Understandable. Mauga ult makes Doomfist a non-hero and he's useless. Oh yeah, you're not wrong. It's actually hilarious getting pulled into the trap with Doomfist because he literally can only do one of things. He go pew pew or, and then after the block's over, it's like pew pew pew. Can't punch, can't do shit. So it's not a good time for him. Can we get more details on the hero ban system you were looking at? Oh, this has sparked so much like that. I bet they kind of regret saying that, honestly. Would it be single ban per team, or can we get one for each role? Would there also be protects? I've always loved the idea, and I think it's great that you're giving it a chance. Want to clarify here that this is the first time... Want to clarify here that the first time we do this, it will be for a limited time as an experiment. With that said, we're discussing how exactly it will work in the match flow and where we put this experiment. Should everyone get a ban against one hero in their role? Should this experiment actually run in competitive for a weekend? Or should it get its own queue? How long is this phase before you select heroes? How much time does a team need to feel like they are strategizing, but not so long as it significantly increases the match length? I want to give a take on this, but I'll read first. Those are the sorts of questions we talk about in our design meetings around this. I think any sort of ban system in Overwatch has the chance to be fairly polarizing. Especially when your main gets banned. The point of the experiment will be to gather some initial feedback and make sure that if we ever move forward with permanently adding bans, we've covered all our bases. Okay. I want to be real careful with how I phrase this. Bans are interesting. Bans are very interesting because it gives the player the opportunity to band-aid fix the game to their perception. For example, in Siege, when we implemented hero bans, it was actually after I was a pro. But there were certain heroes that were absolutely busted or perceived as busted, both in high rank and in low rank. In low rank, especially, Jackal was thought of as extremely busted. And he got some buffs and became kind of busted in high rank too for a little bit. But everyone was like, oh my god, Jackal's the most busted thing ever. What is Jackal? Jackal was this character where basically he could scan footsteps and would track you, right? He was basically like a dog character where he would track your footsteps and it would pinpoint where you are. So if like you were roaming around the map, he could look at the ground, ping it, and then chase you. Jackal is still permabanned. Is that true in high rank though? I don't know if that's true in high rank. I've played with friends like once in a while in the last couple months, like, and every time I've ever hopped on, I'm like, oh, who are we banning? They're like, Jackal. I'm like, really? Still? Like, and like, they're like gold, right? Like, they're not very fucking good. Yes, my husband is champ. Is it really still auto ban Jackal in high rank play too? Or is it just, yeah, I know below plat it 100% is. There was Echo as well. Echo and Jackal were the big ones. Diamond Plus, don't ban him. See, that's kind of what I'm getting at though, is for like lower ranks, right? Like your metal rank players, they'll think Jackal's insane. Let's put it to Overwatch. Junkrat, Reaper, Mercy, right? Basically, in high rank, if people think, let's say, Winston's busted right now. Everyone says Winston's busted. But in the metal ranks, people don't know how to play Winston. They don't think Winston's busted. They think Reaper's busted.
Happy
both
20
of those
flats,
people,
so many sweats today on quick play.
Both of those people get to, I'm going to be alerts for a little bit. Both of those people get to have a impact on the game, right? They get to have some type of control in their hands to shape their own destiny for the game, right? Like if they don't like playing against Mercies every game, they can ban Mercy. If they don't like playing against Junkrats every game, ban Junkrat. And the high end of play is something gets really, really busted, right? Like let's say Brig goes crazy and starts overrunning the game again. You can just start banning Brig on cooldown. This does two things. One, puts a little bit of power in your hands to not have to play against the broken whatever's going on at the moment. But number two, it's actually an indicator for developers or for the Overwatch team to go, hey, this character right now might have a decent win rate, but she just has like a consistent 70% ban rate. Why? Right? And so this happened in Siege 2 with Clash, actually. And Clash was strong, but she wasn't like OP strong at one point. But she was a consistent perma ban for so long, they just took her out of the game for a while. Because they were like, we don't understand. we don't know what's happening anymore. And so basically, the community banned a character so fucking much that the game was like, all right, we'll take her out for a bit. We don't know we'll figure something out. And so it was a way for the community to both have an impact on the game without having to deal with some whatever bullshit that's happening at the moment, right? Those are, I would say, net positives. Other net positives from that obviously are like, you know, people are one tricking, right? And this is gonna slow. This is a two-part. This is like positive and negative. If people are one tricking, it's a lot harder for those people to stay super high rank one tricking because people will start banning them. But that starts another problem. Why are you picking on one tricks, right? So like I understand like the whole idea of like having a one trick on your team is annoying, but here's where it becomes a problem. You would have to have like either open profiles all the time for everyone or private profiles for everyone at all the time, because especially once you skew your way up towards the higher ranks, everyone kind of knows each other, and what will happen is targeted bans. Targeted bans will happen where you see, hey, I see someone on the enemy team, they play this hero, ban that hero. Without a streamer mode in the game, you're not even banning based off of what makes the game fun or what makes the match fun or whatever. You're banning off to make your chance of winning higher based off of prior knowledge. And so that's exactly what happens in Champ and R6. Yep. It's the same thing that will happen here. And so let's say, hopefully she's cool with it because we're cool, but Skiesti isn't really known as like a Mercy player, right? Like she plays tons of Mercy. I know she plays Ana and whatnot too, but like if you get in a game with Skiesti, you know she's going to probably play some Mercy, right? If you load into a match with no streamer mode and you see Ski on the other team, they're going to ban Mercy. Why? Because they're like, oh, we remove her best hero. Just take her best hero out of the game. The chances of winning just went up by 3%, right? And it's like, that's really, really a dangerous game to be playing, right? Because especially as like a streamer or a content creator or a pro player or someone who's well known, like people are going to hardcore target you. And that fucking blows, right? That fucking blows. And especially for your people that are more considered like the sweats, more the people that actually play your game day in and day out, like realistically, they are part of the lifeblood of your game. Like competitive player, like hardcore sweat competitive players need casual players, and casual players need the hardcore competitive sweat people. Because if you don't have both, your game falls apart. That's realistically what happens, right? So like no game that only caters to one side lasts, right? Like that's always happened. Like you see Six, you ban Hog, you see Cloudy, you ban Ryan, right? Like no, and all of those guys, all of those people can play other things, right? Like those are like they only play those characters because they want to, right? Like Ryan, like Cloudy can play Winston, he can play Ram, he can play other shit, just doesn't like to, right? So like there's a lot of big problems that hero bans create, and there is also another one too, where like what happens when it's like characters like someone can only play certain things, right? Like that's a much deeper, more dangerous conversation getting into, but like especially if like people have physical limitations, right? They can only play certain characters. That's why I think it should be like comp only. Even then it's a little tough, because it's like it's hard to always balance stuff around those types of things. But yeah, no, please, not in comp. No, like it should be only in comp. That's the whole point of hero bans, is to make the game more competitive. Like that is the whole point. Having hero bans in quick play really don't make no sense. I don't know. It's a really polarizing conversation, and I think at some point, God, I don't want to like advocate for it, but there definitely needs to be like a discussion about it, like a long, big one. Because I'm actually not on either side of the fence. I think hero bans could be really good. I also think it could be really bad. I will say though, if I had any opinion on anything, is that hero bans cannot exist until a streamer mode exists, and I mean a real streamer mode. I don't mean this bullshit protecting my name from myself. I mean, when I load into a lobby, it says Reinhardt 1 or player 1, right? Like, until that day happens, there cannot be hero bans, because you would fucking ruin the game for a lot of high rank players. There's a lot of discussion right now around the way Mauga was buffed coming into the live game, especially how he's been more oppressive against his good matchups and still gets shut down with relative ease by certain heroes in the cast. I personally find this balance philosophy dangerous, as it sidelines possible adaptations against bad matchups in favor of enabling the hard counter swap mindset. Okay, they're kind of losing the plot midway through this. Like, I feel like they're trying to be like forceful and like use strong wording, but like what they said didn't make sense. Okay, I don't think there should be no counters. Having varying matchups is what makes a balanced game fun, but it feels like extreme right now. I'm really unsure what changes could alleviate this issue. What tools does the balance team use to evaluate matchups between heroes? And which knobs do you twist to change the way a game feels from each hero's perspective? They actually, and then someone links something and says, they actually buffed Winston and Doom because of the bad matchups with Mauga, but they didn't address the bad matchup. They want more people to play Winston/Doom, so the Mauga players have someone to destroy. Okay. An important aspect of our hero design philosophy is that heroes should have clear strengths and weaknesses to create more varied and interesting gameplay. When we look to buff a hero, for example, we want to keep in mind and typically try to focus on a hero's intended strengths rather than clearing away their weaknesses. We do want to avoid counters being too easy and effective without adequate counterplay options. There is a broad goal of making sure each hero choice is viable in some capacity and feels good to play, while hopefully not feeling too unfair to play against. Ooh. Okay. Some direct matchups are not reasonably close, like Winston versus Roadhog, but we don't strictly balance off of 1v1 matchups, as Overwatch is a team game. Winston has a good chance to win by going after everyone that is not Roadhog, for example. That is true. Generally, we found that when the heroes are balanced closely enough, individual player performance and teamwork has significantly more impact on the outcome of a match than hero choice does, until you reach the highest levels of competition. Yeah, there you go. They saved it right at the end. Like, you almost had me. I was like, ooh, that's a hot. Okay, never mind. You got it. So, okay. Hear me out on this. Ready? We talked about this yesterday, so I'm not going to go about it too much. But you see this thing right here? Some matchups are not reasonably close. We don't strictly balance off of 1v1 matchups in Overwatch, as it's a team game. That's true. But, for example, Ana Nade, it's really tough, you know, because like I understand what they're going for with direct matchups. Like, for example, the counter swap game of you know, they go Orisa, I go Zarya, they go Zarya, I go Winton, you go Winton, they go Diva, they go Diva, I go Zarya, they go Zarya, I go Reiner, Ramattra. You know what I mean? Like, you just play the counter swap game, right? With something like Ana, right? There is no counter swap game for Ana. It's your teammate that needs to play the counter swap game for you, right? Like, they need to play Kiri, right? Like that's the answer. Whenever anyone talks about Ana Nade being too strong right now, they're like, well, what about Kiri? Right. But if your tank, let's say your tank's playing Mauga, right? Your tank is playing Mauga, and Mauga's really good, and Mauga's the correct choice to play in this outcome. But then they go Ana, and their Ana's kind of shutting you down, but you need to stay Mauga, right? I'll give you a good example. Like, you play Widow on, like, Junkertown, right? Like, even if you're kind of losing the Widow duel, you still play Widow on Junkertown because the threat of the Widow is still very powerful, right? But if your teammate doesn't go Kiri, or doesn't know how to play Kiri, even if they pick it and, like, they don't really know how to Suzu you incorrectly, or they get pressured early, you kind of just get shit on, right? And so there is no counter swap for you to save yourself, right? Like, if you go, like, let's say, like, Winston's pretty decent against Ana, right? They already have a Brig. And then on top of that, too, they're playing Roadhog, right? Like, let's say, because of their example, they're playing Roadhog. Well, now you're going to swap into a considerably worse tank because their support choice. I understand what they're saying. It's like they don't strictly balance off of 1v1 matchups, but there's certain characters with certain abilities and certain things right now that are completely gatekeeping, I think, the way you can balance other heroes. It's tough. It's really, really tough. They don't have an easy job with it, I'll say that. But I do think this guy's hardcore overreacting a little bit. I think that they've been making some pretty decent changes recently. And I guess we'll have to see what happens with Mauga. But yeah, I don't think Mauga's going to be that impactful. I think he'll probably be a middle rank pub stomper. But yeah, let's continue. Until you get anti-nade, then you go boom. Thoughts on potentially swapping his miniguns from ammo to a heat system like Orisa? Right now, there's not a strong desire to potentially make such a swap, so this is a no. Heat systems give significantly more damage uptime compared to traditional ammo systems. They're functionally just a consistent reload that you can cancel at any time, unless you hit 0 ammo. The reload time gives players a window of opportunity to avoid his fire. This is just a polite way of saying no. What heroes has the most amount of final blows on Mauga? Mauga. 2 Maugas enter a cage fight. 1 leaves. Both leave. There's a lot of Mauga right now. More than any other hero. He's responsible for many deaths. Even his own. I would have liked what was number 2 to be answered then. I mean, they technically answered the question. They didn't have to answer with the second one. But also the whole idea of final blows is interesting in Overwatch. Because, like, someone could just walk by and just, like, little melee and then you get the final blow, you know? I like to think about, like, who does the most damage or, like, who affected the kill, right? Like, let's say that Mauga is sitting there going, I will not die, anti-nade. Like, and then it's like, yeah, the Mauga got the final kill, but within getting hit by the anti, he died within 1.3 seconds. Who really got the kill? You know what I mean? How is Mauga performing in each rank? Higher or lower than expected? Granted, it's very early. I'm just curious. Throwing this on here late. But it's intended that health packs don't stop Mauga's burn. Considering it stops other damage, time effects throws me off. Yeah, I think that's a bug. Mauga's not in ranked yet, but assuming that you know that, I would think the question still stands. Matchmaking does take into account skill ranks, so it still would be interesting to know. Yes, of course it does. According to Overbuff, the guy has a 56% win rate across all ranks, with it actually higher in GM. Probably not a good sign of balance that a new hero that nobody knows about is achieving the highest win rate across all heroes, despite being mirrored in a sizable chunk of the game. Yeah, because it's quick play, 1, and 2, it was supposed to be on the safe side of strong because it's quick play. It's also overbuff. Like, you use it as a guideline. Don't use it as a strict, you know, like, oh, this is exactly, no, use it as a guideline, 1. 2, yeah, it's in quick play. Like, we still have another week till it hits comp, you know? Like, people freak out and go, oh, they take forever to nerf things. Oh! I lived in an era where it took them 9 months to nerf Orisa's shield by like 100 damage when she dominated the game for literally 9 months. Don't fucking sit there and tell me that they're like, oh, they're so slow. No. I will complain about a lot of shit, but they have not been slow with these. Release Brig, Moth meta, literally, people say, oh, it was only like 3 or 4 seasons. Bro, the seasons were triple the length. Seasons weren't 60 days. Seasons were 180 days. They were half the fucking year. They were literally like double or triple the size. Like, guys, this went on for years. So like, I'm all for complaining about stuff, but like, come on, guys. Very well. At at all rank thresholds, one of the reasons we are putting out some initial changes today to lower his damage output, which also affects his sustain. True. During the BlizzCon trial, Mauga was actually performing better than the community's perception, but there are some issues with his survivability and the things like his head hitbox size. We pushed him a bit further with the understanding that we would act quick if things weren't in line with our overall balance goals. Today's nerf should give us a better idea, a better look at where he'll end up when he enters competitive. Boom, that's a fucking perfect answer. That's a great answer, Alec. There you go. That is the shit you want to see. Good answer. Mauga seems very feast or famine at the moment. When he works really well. When he doesn't work, he's basically useless. He also demands a lot of attention from his support line to the point that it feels like you have to heal bot him or he'll just evaporate the instant you look away. Has the team noticed similar patterns in their data? The way Mauga was designed invites players to get up into the thick of the fight all together with his team. Overrun encourages players to land directly on top of their opponents, and his dual fire mode is more effective at close ranges. Cardiac Overdrive and Cage Fight invite his teammates to stay close to him and take advantage of their defensive benefits. I'm going to stop right there because that doesn't work in high rank play. I was actually testing that for a while in my quick play games. I was trying to run up on people, slam them, and then go, and I'm not joking. I went more times than I could count. That the way to actually play him was to sit on corners, left and right, 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 until their Mauga got aggressive or their Mauga walked back, and then I would pop overrun and go, oh, or the cardiac overdrive go, oh, into their Mauga, until one of three things happened. One of us got antied and died. One of us ran out of the cardiac overdrive first, or one of us killed each other. That's how it worked. If we got antied, they died. If we ran out of cardiac overdrive, you turn around and you went and just fucking run. Unless you were the person who went second, then you kill them. Or third, you killed them, right? Well, like that was the gameplay loop. If you tried to run in and slam on somebody and kill them, you just poof. You actually pee poofed. So I don't agree with that. That is not the way it actually ends up working out. I understand what they were going for, but he's like Roadhog. He's a big, fat, fucking no shield target that will just get hit by every ability in the game and explode and get the tank experience. And like, I have a lot of clips of what the tank experience on Mauga can look like. I also have a lot of games where I finish with like 30,000 damage, right? This can cause Mauga to go into a lot of situations that are a lot more precarious and will result in him struggling if his team isn't on the same page. It actually doesn't even matter if his team's on the same page most of the time. Mauga's abilities are versatile and have use in situations where they don't get full value. Overrun, for example, lets players run away from a fight with damage resistance so they can poke from further away with his alternating single fire chain guns. Wait, hang on, I gotta rerun that. Overrun, for example, lets players run away from a fight with damage resistance. Wait, in Overrun, when you're running, you get damage resistance too? I didn't think you got damage resistance. I know you got CC resistance. You do? I thought it was only cardiac overdrive. So wait, you get it in both cardiac overdrive and the run? That probably explains why running away from the fight felt way better than running into the fight. As dumb as that sounds, it actually felt, it always felt way better to run away, you know? So like, it ended up being the opposite. You know, I always felt like I was running away than running in. Anytime I ran in, I died. If I ran away, I'd survive. That explains a lot. Okay. So they can poke from further away with alternating his fire chain gun. Okay, yeah, right. As time goes on and players explore Mauga's kit more nuanced uses of abilities should hopefully make playing him less polarizing. His abilities also have a lot of tuning points in regards to both how he helps himself and how he helps his teammates, so there's plenty of room to change his numbers as he develops in the future. That's a pretty fair answer. The back half, I don't totally agree with like the whole running in thing. I think you just explode 99% of the time. Anna has been a hot topic recently with being only amplified by Mauga. Anna is currently needed to keep some of the current tanks in check. How are you planning to curb Anna's complaints and incredibly high pick rate while making sure some of the tanks currently being held back by anti don't profit too much from Anna nerfs? Yeah, I don't totally agree with the idea of like Anna's holding back some tanks. Yes, is it technically true for things like probably like Roadhog? Roadhog's pretty strong without Anna. Yes, but Roadhog's strong, in my opinion, because Anna's there. Like if Anna wasn't the same character, then you could tune those characters back a little bit, right? Like we're using Anna as the gatekeeper, but I think Anna's actually, it's the opposite. Anna's actually gatekeeping them, so they have to be strong, because if they're not, then they just die, right? It's weird. I actually think it's the opposite, but or currently no Anna changes on the horizon. Are you planning to nerf some tanks in the current patch? Wait, what? Are you planning to nerf some tanks in the current patch or the patch with the Anna changes? First off, see, thank you for the 10 gifties. You're crazy. Thank you so much, dude. Check just one for the 10 gifties. 2, god damn, leave us fucking alone, dude. The tank nerfs? What tank nerfs do you want? Anti-heal is a useful mechanic for the overall health of the game, as it helps to ensure that healing never gets too far out of control. I don't like that answer. Healing never getting too far out of control is gatekept by anti-need. Why not make it so that healing just doesn't get out of control, period? If anything, the fact that anti-nade not existing would make it so that I feel like you could say this is the maximum amount of healing that could ever be outputted at a time, right? Like if Roadhog went for a self-heal plus both supports pocketing, like this is the max, right? But like when you can say, oh, you could just anti him, right? Like that's what most people's answer is, right? Like, oh, just anti him. It's like, well, why is the answer just to anti him? Why isn't the answer like there shouldn't be that much healing, period, right? Because like, let's say you're playing Tracer, let's say you're playing Reinhardt, let's say you're playing Genji, let's say you're playing the other support, right? Without that anti-nade, you don't feel like you have much impact, right? Because like you're completely reliant on that guy with the anti-nade to hit that anti-nade. And there's not many other abilities in the game that really work that way. Some of them are, so there are some like Lamp and Suzu, but I talked about it a little bit yesterday on how immortality is really, really impossible to balance, right? And like we used to have ults like Beat, Transcendence, and it was like the ult type of thing. But now it's like cooldown versus ult, right? So I don't know. I don't really like that. I really don't like that answer. I don't think anti should be the answer to everything. The complaints around it feeling oppressive are understandable, as debuffs are never something players want to be affected by, and will be looking for ways to soften its impact while keeping Ana a viable hero. The simplest solution we have here is decreasing the duration of the effect, though there is certainly a point where it swings from feeling OP to not useful enough if the time is too low to really capitalize on. Isn't that also like another point that it's probably too polarizing and like it's just an ability that really doesn't fit Overwatch 2 as much as a cooldown, right? If its two states of balance are broken or shit, isn't that probably like a warning sign that like, hey, we need to figure this out, right? Because like, hell, at that point, why not just make it so that like you have 2 anti-nades, make it only 1.5 seconds, but have it on like a 6-second cooldown, and then lower the healing as well. So like you're throwing it more often, but it's for smaller bursts, right? But even at that point, then you're gonna go like, oh well, it's too short of a duration. Well, exactly. Like even if you gave someone more of them, like if you hit them with 2 back-to-back, that would probably be enough, right? Like. Well, actually, what would it have to be? It would probably have to be like 1.75 seconds or something like that to match up with like current. What is Ana's right now? Is Ana's 4 seconds right now or 3.5? I don't remember. They changed it a few times. But yeah, like maybe it was to the point where you could throw 2 anti-nades, so you could technically anti them for the same amount of time that they currently are now, but you'd have to hit the anti-nade twice. That way, Ana would also have better self-healing, because she could technically nade herself twice at the same time. Like, you'd have to lower it, right? Like, the amount of healing that it does, probably, if you wanted to truly balance it. But having it twice might feel more intuitive. I mean, that's what we did to Junkrat, right? Like, if you sit there and go, well, that shouldn't be the answer either. Well, we did that with Junkrat. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't have a great answer for it, but I also don't like the idea that anti-heal is what's gatekeeping half of this shit. Anyways, let's continue. The reaction around it does also suggest that healing is probably too impactful overall, so we'll be looking to address that in the near future as well, whether that is handled in the case of individual heroes like Roadhogs, Take a Breather, or more systematically. Yeah, I mean, Alex said that basically Season 9, they're basically looking a way to shake up the game with burst damage and burst healing. So I'm looking forward to what that ends up looking like. But yeah. Anyways, next. Oh, that was the end. This is the PDF with everything.